You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
And today we're about to tackle our last house call of the weekend. So really excited to get into your questions. Yesterday was a little bit more rapid fire. If you didn't check that out, highly recommend that. You can just go to stephencabral.com/259, or just, as always, you can just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. I try to link up show notes with everyone every day. I give a little write-up on each one. And of course, that has a link to anything that we may recommend during that show. Just, of course, things that I recommend in my Boston practice. But if you're working with a functional medicine doctor, that's fantastic as well. If you trust the functional medicine doctor that you're working with, I highly recommend doing what they say, doing what they recommend. And the reason is that you have to put your trust in the practitioner that you're working with. So again, really love the functional medicine field, but not everyone is created equal in terms of how they test and they teach. Remember, there are functional medicine practitioners that are MDs, NDs, homeopaths, chiropractors. Everyone has a different background. Everyone practices differently. If that person didn't work out for you, don't throw functional medicine out the window just because you didn't meet with the first practitioner that worked for you. It took me, I can't even tell you how many doctors, right, to find the one that was a true mentor to me when I was trying to get well. Too many to speak of and too much money to really talk about, but I got there. So again, I don't want to turn this into a motivational episode, but it took me a long time. But you just remember, if you're sick, if you're not well, if you can't lose the weight, if you just feel like you're aging too quickly, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to everyone around you to keep pushing, to just really find that person that works well with you. All right, so let's get into this first question today. It's from Susan. Susan's asking, or she says, "Hello, Dr. Cabral. I'm an avid podcast listener, and I'm so disappointed you are in Boston. I think need to open a Toronto clinic. Sorry, that will not be happening anytime soon." Thank you, Susan, for saying that. And just want to let everyone know, I work with people all over the world, and we just do it through the magic of Skype video. And Skype is free. You just sign up for a free account. So just keep in mind that we can always work with people all over the world. Now, for myself, I know I am booked out probably 3, 4, 6 weeks in advance, but we also have holistic health coaches on my team trained by me. And we have nutritionists that are fantastic. So if you ever run we send our labs to Canada as well. If you ever run a lab through us, you actually get my personal recommendations. I don't know if people know that. And you get to speak with our holistic health coach for 30 minutes to review all of that and the protocol, the nutritional supplements that I recommended. Or you can even speak with myself. I know that it's not always easy to get an appointment. And again, because there's only so many hours in a day, right? But I'm happy to help anybody throughout the world. And I just want to make that known. But again, I know that will become less and less as we just keep spreading the word. But anyway, Susan, there are so many great people. And so I think you'll be able to find someone up there too. All right. So my question is about psoriasis. I have it, but not too bad. Scalp only. My 2 daughters have developed it as well. One is 16, one is 7. The 7-year-old developed it after she scraped her knee. Just wondering what I could try to get rid of it and if you can cure this autoimmune issue through diet. Most information says no. Also, looking online various studies to show people who have get psoriasis before the age of 25 and they have a shortened lifespan. Disturbing for me and looking for some help. So do not listen to people saying that you cannot get rid of any autoimmune issue or psoriasis or anything like that. That is completely not true. Just because a health practitioner or a researcher or someone like that hasn't been able to help the person doesn't mean that a person can't get help. That means they, as the practitioner, doesn't know how to do it. That's not fair to say to you. That's very discouraging. I help people every single day in my practice with psoriasis. Every single day with eczema, psoriasis at 3 months old and at 80 years old, at a 1/4-inch thick plaque psoriasis on their knees and elbows, and those people who have it just mainly on their scalp. Keep in mind, every single person can get well. Is the journey straightforward? Is it easy at times? Will it happen in a week? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This person, whoever it is, has an autoimmune based issue. That didn't happen overnight. That's not going to happen, and that's not going to get fixed overnight either. However, I can tell you right now, you can and will see progress within 12 weeks, if not complete remission. Now, what is remission? Remission means you no longer have an autoimmune disease. That's what it means. Remission is just a nice word for saying, well, it could come back one day. Sure, it could come back. That's because everyone has an Achilles heel. Everyone is genetically prone to certain things. That doesn't mean you have to have it. I was on what I consider my deathbed, and no one could figure out what it is, and my whole immune system was shutting down. I have things, or supposed to have things, that could shorten life, that could do all sorts of things. I work every day to make sure that I keep myself healthy, and that nothing like that ever comes back. Did I get cured overnight? No. It was a journey. I got well. If I was the one treating the old me, I would not have even got better overnight. I had a really complicated case. It probably would have taken me 6 months to get better. It wouldn't have happened at that 6-month date. I would have got gradually better every single month, right? Here's the thing. We all want to get better tomorrow. With complicated cases and with psoriasis, it's going to take about 12 weeks. That's not the end of the world. That's not forever. I see psoriasis every single day. Here's what happens. It actually starts to look worse the first week or 2 weeks. It starts to get white. It starts to flake over. Then the skin gets nice and pink. Then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it completely goes away with fresh skin. How do we do that? We do that through finding out why you have psoriasis in the first place, right? There's always a reason why. Autoimmune issue. What does that mean? Autoimmune issue means nothing. It is a collection of symptoms. It's a nice little name in conventional medicine that we give diseases. A disease is a dis-ease of the body. It means there's something wrong. It means there's a Th1 to Th2 imbalance. It also means there can be yeast overgrowth. It also means there can be fungal or bacterial overgrowth. There's something wrong with the gut in autoimmune-based issues. All the research is pointing that way. Please do not wait for the very last research study to say, hey, if you have an autoimmune issue, it's gut-based, because it is. So what do we have to do? We run an organic acids test, or we run a stool test for parasites. I always say start with the organic acids test. We find if there's yeast overgrowth. We find if there's bacterial overgrowth. Why do we talk about the organic acids test so much? I apologize, I'm going on about the subject, and I do have to move on. Here's the thing. It's so hard to find things after they're already dead and they come out and you get a sample or you get stool or whatever it is. Hard to find that lab. But you know what? When you do an organic acids test, what are you looking for? You're looking for the waste of that thing. So I know this is a very crude analogy and I apologize. But if a hunter's looking for a bear or deer in the forest, they look for droppings. They look for waste, right? Stool. Because those things stay there. They can see if it's there or not. They don't need to find the deer. They find the waste. Hey, there's deer here. Like, I know that's a crude analogy, but it's the simplest way to find if there's yeast overgrowth because they give off waste. If there's bacteria, they give off waste. These are living things. So, Susan, I can't answer that in a podcast episode, but you can get well. Find a functional medicine practitioner who treats the gut, remove the yeast, remove the bacteria, remove whatever's there, seal up the gut wall, start to cut down on your heavy proteins for right now because they're moving into your bloodstream. Nothing you can do about that in the short term. You will get well. So will your children. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Max is up next. I can get pretty intense with this. You should see me with an in-office visit too. Sometimes people are like, all right, slow down. So Max is up next. Max is asking, hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm writing on behalf of my friend Sally. She has a 12-year-old son with diagnosed ADHD. She has not, nor does she want to get him on medication to treat it. Now those teen hormones are kicking in and they are struggling. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations on how to treat ADHD? Yes. So Max, here's the thing. If she really doesn't want to use the medication, fantastic. Here's why. The medication for ADD, ADHD is deplorable. It is legalized speed. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe our pharmaceutical industry could possibly do this to people, look it up. It pushes norepinephrine or adrenaline. That is how we get focused, which pushes glucocorticoids, which is cortisol. Everybody by now has pretty much heard cortisol is a really bad thing, right? What does it do? Breaks down muscle tissue, poor nutrients. So your child's typically going to be on the smaller side. It can hurt eyesight. It can hurt blood vessels. It can hurt the nervous system. It can lead to anxiety and depression. Are these things we really want for our children? Absolutely not. Is there a cure? There's not even a cure. Let's not even talk about this. Is there a rebalancing of the body so your child doesn't have ADD or ADHD? Yes, absolutely. Use a hair tissue mineral analysis. Find out if there is copper toxicity. Find out if there's higher levels of calcium to magnesium. Maybe the child needs a little more zinc. Maybe they need a little bit more omega-3s. They could do an omega-3 test. Maybe they need more magnesium. Maybe they need more of a magnesium citrate powder if they're a young child. Maybe they need to learn on relaxation techniques. I mean, these are all things that we can do. ADD is not a thing. It is an imbalance in the body. If it was around when I was in school 30 years ago, I would have, as a young kid in elementary school, I would have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. I would have. That's just the way it is. I'm so happy I was not put on medications because that would have made a kid like me even worse. It would make my stressed body even more stressed. ADD medication makes your body more stressed. Plain and simple. Not smart. It's just not a good thing. And I understand there's so many parents struggling with this right now. So am I saying you made a bad choice if your child's on ADD medication? No, because you're doing the best that you can. My parents did the best they can. I did the best that I can. I still got sick. It doesn't mean that it's the right choice. It just means you're doing the best you can. Please, you owe it to yourself to look into it. You owe it to yourself to find out, are there natural remedies for ADD, ADHD? And I just mentioned a few, but you'll need to look deeper. Look at the gut, look at a hair tissue mineral analysis, look at mineral imbalances, look at omega-3s. There are so many great studies that just show kids who have ADD, ADHD are lower in zinc, magnesium, omega-3s. They're eating too many processed foods. I've just done this. I've cut gluten and dairy and the high allergens out of kids' diets, like soy as well. I've cut out a lot of the oils, the cooking in the oil, and they haven't needed a single nutritional supplement. Yes, they've used a multi or something like that. They got better. They used very simple things. They just cut out processed food. They had less inflammation in their body, which means their brains were less inflamed as well. I could talk about this all day. If this is a big topic, I will talk about it more in depth in the future as well. I feel bad because I really want to help kids too. It's not their fault. They have no choice in the matter. So hopefully that helps. And if your child's on ADD medication, don't just stop all of a sudden. You can wean off with the help of a good practitioner. Okay? Chad's asking, thanks for all the great info. What are your thoughts on the trap bar deadlift? He goes into just some of the reasons why. He doesn't like to do as much squatting because of the heavy load. Let's chat about that. So, Chad, here's the thing. A trap bar can be absolutely fantastic. For everyone who's not a personal trainer in like the exercise industry, a trap bar means... Think about this. When you're doing a deadlift, you're holding weights by your sides or in front of your body, or you're holding a barbell in front of your body from the floor, and you're picking it up to about, your waist height, right around your quads. And so basically a deadlift means you're deadlifting. You're picking weight off the ground. So now how we start clients is always with dumbbells by the sides. They're holding dumbbells by their sides and they're squatting down and picking it back up. Only difference between really a squat and a deadlift is where you load the weight. A deadlift, you're loading it typically low because you're deadlifting. You're pulling it from the floor. A squat, typically loaded somewhere around the chest, shoulder area. It can be, there's Zercher squats. There's a lot of different things. I understand that. Please don't nitpick me for where you're holding the weight. But a deadlift, you're picking it from the floor up, okay? So, Chad, why can a trap bar be so great? Because you're mimicking what we do with our own clients. You're holding it by your sides, neutral grip, which means your palms face your body. The weight is by your quads, your IT bands. What does that mean? Well, it means this. There's less rounding of the lower back, and there's less chance of injury. Why? When you hold the weights in front of your body, in front of your knees, far more likely to go into what's called an anterior pelvic tilt forward, which means your hips start to dump forward. And what that means is greater chance for injury in the lower back. Love holding the weights by the sides. Think it's fantastic. You can get just as great results. You're not a power lifter, of course. Obviously, I'm assuming that because then you'd have to do the barbell deadlift in front. The trap bar allows you now to load up more weight and just put it on the sides. But really what you're doing is just using a neutral grip, and you get to pull your shoulder blades back. So hard to pull your shoulder blades back when you're using a barbell in front of the body. So for everyone in general, a dumbbell deadlift with you holding with the weights by your sides, absolutely fantastic. Chad, you're asking the same thing, but you're asking, how can I do this in a more advanced way so I can load up the bar with more weight? Love your thought process. Like where you're at. You're going to be able to work your rhomboids. You're going to be able to work your upper back muscles, your postural muscles to a greater degree. You're going to be able to keep the weight more in the center of your gravity along that plumb line from your ears, shoulders, hips, knees down. So only high recommendations to that. You asked a bunch of questions. I will get to those in the future as well, because I think that they really are great questions, but I'm going on and on right now with this podcast. So, really nice, diverse questions today. And, if I'm ever not answering it in the way that you like, please do feel free, let me know. I answer it a little bit differently, maybe just even on the day, maybe the topics that I've been thinking about. So when I talk about things a second or third time around, it might be different. And I want you to know anything that I promote in this podcast, anything that I talk about, I want you to know that these are things that I would do with myself, that I would do with my own family, and that I use in my Boston practice. They're tried and true, the things I've been using for years. I don't even talk about the things that I'm experimenting right now on myself. I'm a human guinea pig. I use myself first. First, I obviously make sure it's a safe product, that it's natural, that I believe in it. Lab testing. I spend my own money for double-blind placebos. If I'm looking into a new lab, I use myself first. I use the same time of the day. I spend my own money on the lab. I write just 2 different names for the person, and I make sure I get the same exact results. I want you to know that this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 30 to 40 years of my life. Everything that I recommend to you, I stand behind. I hope that you trust the information is true. I'm coming from a place where I'm not self-promoting, that I'm just trying to promote the best of the industry. I love so many different great nutritional supplement companies: Thorne, Orthomolecular, Pure, like all these great companies I can get behind. I believe in them. Designs for Health, like a lot of great ones. And of course, I have my own line, Equilibrium Nutrition. And that's simply because these are things that I can formulate. I know exactly where it starts. I know that they're organic, pure products. I can third-party test everything, so I make sure there's no heavy metals. To be honest, I put these things in my body myself, and I want to make sure, again, they're coming from a good place. So just understand, everything is coming from a pure position, coming from a position that I'm person still on a journey, still trying to really just go through this whole process and read, again, at least 3 books a week. I mean, literally, that's the minimum, 150 books a year. And it's simply so that I can grow, I can pass on the information to you, and I can learn myself. So if there's ever anything you want to pass on to me as well, I'm happy to look at it, but I'm also happy to learn. I'm happy to grow. So again, really enjoy this whole week of Cabral Concept podcast. Enjoyed answering your questions. I've got a lot more in the queue, another dozen or so in the queue. Those will be coming up next weekend. And if you've asked your question before today's date, which is around October 22nd, 23rd, please feel free to resubmit it if needed. But if it was in September, I'm still trying to work through the October questions. Thank you once again. And as always, if any episode resonates with you, you feel like it could help someone else, please feel free to just share the link with them. Really simple, really easy. I appreciate every one of your listens. And honestly, the podcast is growing so much more than I thought. And it's a labor of love. And I really enjoy every single listen. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the weekend. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.